I'm David Barton-Grimley, Strategy Director for Fintech right here at 11FS. And in this series, in collaboration with Visa, we are shining a light on fintech trends in different parts of the world. In this half of the series, we're looking closer at Europe and taking a deep dive into everything from e-commerce to digital wallets and AI. In each episode, we will explore a particular country or region within Europe to explore each topic in a little bit more detail. In this episode, we're looking at cross-border payments with particular focus on Southern Europe. So this is really a growing area of innovation, but it's still ripe for disruption and improvement, particularly for businesses who overall are responsible for the vast majority of cross-border payments globally when compared to consumers, but for whom it's still quite complex and often very costly. Couple that with Southern Europe, which is still an up-and-coming region in terms of fintech adoption and innovation, and we have a recipe for a perfect opportunity space. So to have this discussion, I'm delighted to be joined by a panel of fantastic guests. And first up, a big hello to my co-host from Visa, Lynsey Verrillo, Head of Enabler and Small Business Growth at Visa Europe. Welcome to the show, Lynsey. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your role at Visa?
Sure. Thanks, David. Thanks for having me. So I'm leading one of our European teams here at Visa. I'm responsible for the group that we call merchant enablers. So payment gateways, software platforms, etc., really supporting a lot of the merchants across the region, and also looking at how does Visa support in the small business segment. So great to join this conversation today.
Awesome. And next up, we have Harry Xenofontos, Chief Partnerships Officer at Viva.com. Thanks for joining us, Harry. Can you also give us an outline of your role at Viva Group?
Thank you, David. Pleasure to be here. My role at Viva.com is I oversee and leading the strategic business development. And partnerships is an integral part of this development, whether it's payment methods or strategic ISVs, hardware vendors, marketplaces, mobile operators, financial institutions, anything that will help drive adoption of our solutions and payments. Viva.com is a leading acquirer in 24 countries in Europe, offering also a bundled solution with an account and issuing, as well as merchant advance and microfinancing. We do focus a lot on SMEs and micro businesses where it can tap in and quickly on board, start getting paid or pay, and looking out into offering new solutions, new checkout flows, addressing new use cases, helping businesses, operations, saving costs and user experiences.
Amazing. And last but not least, we are joined by Enrico Causero, General Manager, Cloud, Microbusiness and Digital Finance Solutions at TeamSystem. Thanks for being here with us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and TeamSystem?
Yes, of course. Happy to join the conversation. Enrico Causero, Head of the business unit dedicated to microbusinesses and fintech. TeamSystem is a software company, software tech data company. So we serve 2 million customers in Southern Europe, especially mostly in Italy, given the fact that the headquarters is based in Italy, but we have operations also in Spain and in Turkey. And we serve, as I said, micro small businesses for invoicing and accounting. And also we joined the fintech market just a few years ago, 2-3 years ago, especially in the payment side. So very helpful, this conversation. I think very useful insights we might discuss.
All right. Now, so before we dive in, just as a reminder to our listeners that the views or opinions of our panel are their own and don't necessarily reflect those of the companies they are representing. And as always, nothing we should say should be taken as tax, financial, or legal advice. So please do your own research based on some of the things we're discussing today. So without further ado, first off, I'd like to talk to you, Lynsey, and get your position at Visa, just to give us a high-level introduction to the cross-border payment space in Europe, and why this is a market that remains a huge opportunity for disruption and improvement, especially for SMEs.
Thanks, David. It definitely is. So cross-border payments, a huge growth area. We see that growing rapidly in Europe, I think, well, globally, actually, due to rising e-commerce volumes. I think technology is truly enabling the way that businesses can trade overseas more readily, and just an increasingly mobile population generally. I think some great stats from the Bank of England predicting that in the next couple of years, by 27, cross-border payments are going to be valued at around $250 trillion worldwide, which is a growth of 40% since 2017. So it's undeniable that it's a tremendous opportunity. And it's getting easier to sell cross-border, and particularly within the EU, where we have the ability to move a lot more readily between the single market. The barriers are pretty low, and we do see a lot of activity. But it's not easy. There's a lot of pain points that still remain for it. I think, we hear that the cost of cross-border can be very high. Settlement can be super slow. The processes can really be quite inefficient at times. And there's a number of challenges that really restrict the attractiveness of cross-border for businesses. Now, if you think then about small businesses who really lack the infrastructure, the ability to invest in the technologies and platforms and services that are truly enabling these flows, it's even harder. It's a really tough piece to start. So, great opportunity for them, because actually what we know is that small businesses are under a huge amount of pressure, particularly in the environment that we're in today with the increased costs of doing business, cost of living, the economic situation that we see in Europe. So they tell us that their overheads are causing them issues. Competition is an issue. Retaining and growing customers is an issue. So, they need to be enabled to keep expanding the way that they do business, and being able to sell cross-border gives them a great opportunity to do that. And from our perspective, small businesses are such a huge part of the European economy. They represent 99% of all businesses and a very high proportion of GDP. So, we see it's our responsibility to enable the access to cross-border payments and growing their businesses through having a really safe and secure way for them to move money around the region and globally.
Yeah, big opportunity, as you say, but also, huge challenges, as you've mentioned there. Harry, I'd love to come to you for your perspective a little bit, as one of the providers, one of the fintechs out there that is working really hard to make things better and take friction out of the experience. Why is it so hard, and why does it continue to be really hard for small businesses to send money abroad?
Yeah. Well, allow me to first say that, with Vivan.com, practically we're financial services providers, so payment services, and our main core product is acquiring, right? So payment acceptance. But through that, what we've accomplished is that we embedded into a bundle an account and also issuing, where we can provide to especially SME businesses as an all-in-one solution, all-inclusive, where they can easily handle and their everyday payments. And through that is, in our vision, how we can eliminate friction of cash, eliminate friction of cross-currency, eliminate friction of time and complexity into day-to-day operations. We are across Europe. So this helps a lot into this, let's say, ecosystem as addressing business interactions in Europe, which there's still multiple currencies. But with our product and solutions and allowing and focusing on helping them accept payments all over the world, but as well as send cross-border payments, is what giving an extra value, helping them, do their international, let's say, business.
And so, yeah, I mean, Enrico, I'd like to also get you in on this as well, particularly with your experience in the Southern European market, which is where I think you guys focus. I mean, what would you say are the specific challenges of businesses in Southern Europe, and when it comes to making and receiving cross-border payments? I imagine also is there still a really high sort of cash component to what businesses do down there?
Yeah, it is, and it is a challenge, especially for the small and micro businesses, which, as Lynsey was saying, represent 95% of the businesses. So the large portion of GDP of the countries are made by these kind of businesses, and I think they feel two kind of pressure. The first kind of pressure that they have is that the customers push them to adopt new payment solutions, to accept these new kind of payments. There are wallets, mobile, international payments, national payments, so they need to cope with this complexity. We come from the angle of the accounting invoicing software, so we need to help them to cope with this complexity, to integrate these payment functionalities within their day-to-day software that they use to send a bill, to send an invoice, in order to make their life easier. So in my opinion, one big challenge is helping them to cope with this complexity and, let's say, make their life easier. Because if they feel that they can cope with this with easy solutions, software solution, integrated solution between accounting and payments, I think this is something that can help them in order to release this kind of solutions to the customers. And that's the first point. The second one is regulation. In the last years, regulation pushed pressure on them. You see PSD2, you see B2B electronic invoicing. In Italy is a reality. Everybody has to send electronic invoicing, so it was a big change. And this regulation is pushing them pressure, but at the other end is helping small businesses to jump into the cloud, into the digitization, into the fintech. So I will say, if we help them, and given the fact that the regulation in any case is pushing small businesses toward digitization, I think in the next year we can see a rise in the adoption of these solutions.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you're saying. There's both a push and a pull. And I think what you started off by saying is that you've got a lot of particularly small businesses who are increasingly needing not just to do business online, but potentially to reach customers overseas in different markets, in different currencies. And Lynsey, from your perspective in Visa, is this something that you're seeing as well? I mean, I suppose it's common for South Europe as it would be across all of Europe. Are businesses really looking to foreign markets to sell and drive business growth?
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely see that. I mean, again, sort of coming back to we do the small business research every year. I think in Italy and Spain, which are the two Southern European markets that we looked at, half of those businesses told us that they've got customers that are sitting outside their domestic markets. So it's really increasingly common, and that can be both visitors coming in, inbound travel, but there's a huge amount of export. You look at sectors such as agriculture in the Southern European markets. Even professional services are being sort of shared cross-border. Technology's just really reduced a lot of those barriers to service a global market. And small businesses are agile, they're fast, they're really looking for the new opportunities. These entrepreneurs are typically, much more savvy around finding the new ways to reach customers. So often they will get there quicker than some of the larger businesses.
And Harry, back maybe to some of the challenges about doing all of this. So, I'm a small business, and all of a sudden I'm trading increasingly abroad. I'm accepting card payments from potentially other businesses or individuals abroad. There's definitely a big risk of fraud, right? In all of this. I mean, how are you seeing an increase in fraud? Whether it's things like phishing scams driven by AI or from anything else?
Well, to start with, and to continue what Lynsey on what you said, small businesses, they want things done now, right? So they want simplicity, so they want to pay and get paid. So tapping on a solution or all our solutions, like, with Vivan.com, for us, part of the strategy and vision is to able to serve them in all sort of payment methods possible, right? And through that, we've seen the challenges and the complexity in each payment method, and what is instant or what is not, or what is good UX, or but obviously security has always been on top of the agenda, and to minimize risk and fraud is by default something we always look at, and the one of the, let's say, the areas where we're focusing, it is cards. Like Visa, and not only to accept the card or issuing to get a payment through a card, but using the card rails like Visa Direct to send money out. With that, it not only eliminates friction, but we know already, and with card rails, dispute and resolution, and fraud management practices, and all this into place, getting the instant authorizations and all that, it does help a lot in minimizing this risk. Obviously, you mentioned AI and new ways of, let's say, for fraudsters to interpret it or to translate in other languages or do phishing attacks easier. But that at the end of the day, if you're using the right rails, which is well established, I think that helps a lot.
And are you seeing, maybe just a question for anyone in the panel, when we think about South Europe in particular, what are the main reluctances that you see from small businesses to, become more digital and accept digital payments? I'm just thinking about customer behavior, not the end customer necessarily, but when we talk about the customer, the SME is the customer. What would you say are the big hesitancies in going further into this? Is it fraud could be definitely one of them. Is it cost? Sometimes international cross-border payments can be very, very expensive. What are you seeing?
If I can answer this question, I would say what we see in the market, especially looking again now at the micro businesses, we see a lot of cultural change barriers, I would say. Sometimes the answer is like, I did it for many years like this, it works. So the cost of changing is in any case something that is sometimes more complex than, the fact that a digital payment can be perceived as more expensive, which in reality is not, we all know. But the cost that we perceive is more on the cultural change to say, okay, I need to manage things in a different way. I need to learn something new. And this is something that, in our opinion, we see as a barrier to adopt new things, even if these new things can be sometimes, very helpful, or the consumer, sometimes they push them to use them. But the cultural change, I see this as probably the most important barrier that I see.
Lynsey, is that something you see as well from Visa?
Fully agree with Enrico's point. I think there's definitely a resistance, and I think there's also in some instances just a lack of awareness from some of these guys' perspective as to what else is out there. There's a lack of expertise because they are typically lower resource. They might not have the same expertise. They definitely won't have somebody dedicated to payments in their business. So they're so reliant on their partners. The likes of Viva and TeamSystem are just so crucial to really help them to piece together the different opportunities that they have and to pull the right tools together. But we see a lot of small businesses today in Southern Europe, but also across the region, leveraging multiple different providers because they build up their businesses as a bit of a patchwork as they bring on a new service, and it's very fragmented. So, we really encourage them to look at, building solutions that will enable them, as Enrico said earlier, to kind of tie together their bookkeeping with their payments, with their other capabilities, because it will drive such efficiency, and it will also, when they get that fantastic solution, it will give them access to tools they didn't even appreciate that they needed.
I was going to mention just that in terms of awareness. I mean, awareness is very key, and if you're to compare Southern Europe with the Nordics, for example, or the UK, I mean, those are a lot more developed, let's say, markets in terms of account-to-account payments or cross-border, or in general in the digital space. In the Southern Europe, there's a lot of lack of awareness because they're used to what their incumbent banks are offering them today, and they do have that sort of a limitation, knowing that there's only one way to send money, and that's through their bank. It is very costly, right? And especially when it's cross-border or in different currencies. I mean, there's maybe so many intermediaries to send this money, and it scares them as well to even get out and growth and do cross-border business. We as Viva, as well as with partners like Visa here, I feel that it's our role to, as enablers and as providing that awareness to help the adoption, right? So if there's new ways of payments, or if there's new different, let's say, solutions and experiences, I mean, that's what we do. That's what we do with our partnerships, to get out there, go to market together, and and drive the adoption of new ways of payments. And that's the beauty. That's the beauty of it.
If I can add to the point, because I think it's a crucial point, awareness and education, I think these are the two main things in order to help these kind of customers. The fact that we are talking about micro and small businesses as two, I would say, issues. Now, first of all, there are millions. So it's not like talking to a big corporate. There are few. You just sit with them, you sit with the managers, and you just educate and explain. It's impossible to sit down with, in Italy, we have like 5 million of micro business. You cannot sit down with each of them. No? So you need to find different ways to spread out. And of course, there are probably less efficient than having, a one-to-one meeting to explain what is, payments embedded payments integrated with your booking engine. No? So that's the first point. It's difficult, but you need to find also a smart way to educate at scale millions of micro business. The second point, I think, as I mentioned at the beginning, regulation can help because sometimes regulation is perceived, it's something annoying, because I need to do something. In reality, if you think about it, electronic invoicing, the fact that you are required as a merchant, for example, to get digital payments, you have to. It's not a choice. You have to. This kind of forcing device, in any case, push adoption and switch the mind of the merchant, of the micro business in a new mode. Is something like, since I have to do it, let's learn how to do it in a better way, and let's to take the advantage of something that is more a regulation in a business opportunity. So that helps.
And Lynsey, maybe just for a last word from you before we go to a break, what would you say are the most exciting, innovative solutions that you see coming on board to solve some of this, adoption hesitancy?
Well, I think it's what we've been talking about already, right? It's where we've got the integrated solutions. And, one trend that we've seen in the ecosystem in the past 5-10 years has definitely been a shift from payments businesses building their own, unique proprietary stack, and actually we're moving to a partnership model. And I think, these two guests we have today are great examples of that, where they're really collaborating across the ecosystem, because we can get the best in class from a verticalization perspective, plus the best in class acquiring solution, and package those together to ensure that small businesses really get exactly what they need. So this is what I've really been appreciating to see, is where you've got really sector focused, SMB focused software that is really addressing the needs of quite niche groups and segments, which is partnering with some of the bigger payments players in order to offer that fully joined up capability. And then I think, like we've spoken about, it's then the opportunity for those groups, and we love to play a role in this as well. It's just really advocating for the benefit of taking on those solutions. And I think the point around e-invoicing is a great example. We really see the value in accessing digital payments as a means to meet that regulation. And then we hope that will demonstrate the value, because actually we've heard from small businesses, when they accept digital payments and they move from more traditional methods, they are getting paid faster. They're less likely to have a customer not pay them, and often the value of those payments is higher. So the proof points are totally there. It's just getting that message across, I think, to the users is the piece that we're all really trying to work on.
Awesome. And on that note, we'll be back after this quick break, so don't go anywhere.
Visa's FinTech Fast Track program is streamlining the onboarding process for fintechs, enabling them to gain access to Visa's powerful capabilities and network. Visa and their enablement partners help fintechs launch and scale cards, virtual credentials, and disbursement programs. To learn more, visit partner.visa.com.
Welcome back to Fintech Insider Focus, where we are taking a close look at the challenges with cross-border payments for SMEs in Southern Europe. But now we want to take a look at the solutions, and we're going to talk a little bit about how fintechs and PSPs are making inroads into the space and reducing and easing the friction. Lynsey, I'd love to come to you first and talk a little bit about how Visa is working with local players to connect networks and just build that connectivity, I guess, with banks across Southern Europe.
Sure. So I think there's a number of things that we're doing, and we're doing this both at a European level, but we've got Visa folks across pretty much every market that we cover in Europe that are really driving a lot of local activations. But a couple of examples that I can bring to life around small business, we've got a number of programs and initiatives where we've really identified those small business sectors that are growing quickly with digital payments, but they're maybe traditionally not your classic payment acceptance verticals. For us, we've identified those are largely in the B2B space and the services space, and Viva and TeamSystem, two great examples of partners that we work with on that, because what we want to do is both learn together and really understand the niche needs of these groups, and then also really be bringing the education that we've already spoken about, but then to the right propositions to those guys to solve the problems that we have. So we both try and work with partners directly, but we're also trying to build that network between partners as well, and build connectivity. And that's another piece of the role that I have around what we're calling the merchant enabler space, really working to actively build that as a network across the region through in-person events, through connecting offline, and just really helping to join the businesses where they've got the mutual opportunity to work together. So partnerships is really key to a lot of the work that we're doing.
Amazing. And actually, I think just before we move on a little bit, it might be worth just concluding the discussion we were having before the break around the SMEs and maybe some of the opportunities and pain points, because I'm conscious of the fact that when we talk about SMEs and micro SMEs, Enrico, I think you mentioned that this is a huge, not only a section of the economy, but it is an extremely diverse group. And Lynsey, you were mentioning there are various different types. Enrico, is there a particular type of SME, or whether it's in a sector or a size, that you see is growing potentially the fastest or has the most exciting use cases for cross-border payments? I mean, are we talking about, I don't know, like small manufacturing businesses, merchants, restaurants? I mean, there's all sorts of different types of businesses here that have various different needs, right?
Yeah, no, I think we see, we are exposed to many different verticals and use cases. We don't have a specific sector. We serve customers from literally every single segment. We saw two segments that request and need more cross-border payments innovation, I would say. The two segments are the one that are exposed more to international consumers, like tourism, for example. In Southern Europe, we know is like one of the world hub for tourism. We also have people from all over the world. And when people come to you, if you are a merchant, a shop, a restaurant, whatever, you need to cope with the complexity of managing digital payments cross-border by definition. So this first point is all the segments exposed to tourism and consumers from all over the world. Again, Southern Europe is very affected by this. The second one are segments that are exposed to export. Italy is a great export country, but also Spain. As I said, we also work in Turkey. So these kind of companies work with literally all over the world. So this is even more difficult than the first segment, because this segment needs to cope with peer-to-peer payments, so company from company, account to account, companies that have different kind of payments. So this is even more complicated and difficult. So these are the two, I would say, group or two segments where we see most of the adoption is needed, and where we see the trend is just ramping up quickly because they need it.
Yeah, and I've been a tourist to various different countries in Southern Europe many times, and I can definitely resonate with some of the issues that you mentioned there, and how important it is for those businesses. Harry and Lynsey, want to come in on that for any other points on specific sectors?
Yeah, I think what I can emphasize when it comes to finding the right solutions for these businesses. I mean, it's one way is to find the right rails or the payment methods and give them new options. But obviously, the use cases, like Enrico mentioned, right? So different types of industries, different type of businesses, but even the same business may have different use cases of how they want to do payments, right? from the checkout flows when they get paid, but at the same time, if they want to pay, whether it's e-invoicing or whether it's some standard recurring payments, whether it's even like loyalty programs or merchant rebates or settling or payments to themselves. There's a lot of different use cases that our solutions try to adapt to, and that makes a big difference. And when it comes to partnerships in that end, or developing these solutions, one is partnering with the likes of Visa to get the rails in place, but on the other end, partnering with the likes of e-invoicing like Enrico and practically or the hardware and the software like the ISVs, the software vendors, and the integrations to address these use cases and these flows of payments are also key. And giving more and more options to this business is what drives adoption faster.
It's great you talked about partnerships, and Lynsey, you raised all the amazing work that Visa is doing in this space. And Enrico, how do you think about partnerships? Some of those payment flows that Harry was talking about can be very, very complicated. To get the money to the customer, to recognize the invoice. This is very complicated. So I imagine that you have to work with many different businesses to come up with solutions.
Totally. Again, if I think about TeamSystem in this case, we are a software company. We are also payment institutions. So we enter into this fintech world, but of course we need, by definition, to partner with third parties. We partner with traditional banks. We partner with Visa, with circuits, we partner with acquirers, we partner with PayPal in order to allow, for example, PayPal users, to allow our customers to be paid by PayPal users. So you need to, in any case, set up a set of partnership in order to allow our customers to accept, for example, payments from different kind of players or pay with different kind of players. So partnership for us is a key asset, and we need to cope with this and work with partners every day.
I'm already thinking solutions we can do with TeamSystem.
Yeah, I was listening to you.
And a great partnership.
Set up a meeting offline. Yeah.
I was going to add, and with software vendors like TeamSystem and their, let's say, footprint or the way that service merchant businesses, we have a trend that we look at marketplaces, right? Or these partners where basically they help en masse merchants to onboard to solutions, right? So we even give our platform for onboarding and tapping into their solutions to address en masse. And the SMEs, because the focus, is how you get the SMEs to utilize. They tend to follow and they tend to go tap on marketplaces, like you see, a retailer marketplace just to sell their products, right? That's one traditional way of going and putting their sales channel into a marketplace. But a marketplace cannot necessarily be a retailer sales channel only. A marketplace can be practically a platform, right? So any platform that they can do businesses and payments or streamline their whole let's say operations. And we see more and more that the marketplace solution as a platform solution practically, and not necessarily for accepting payments. It could be for any of these use cases.
Absolutely. And I think, I don't have the stat with me, but there's definitely lots of stats out there that show that, B2B and B2B2C marketplaces are one of the biggest growth areas in fintech right now. And as I think you've all been saying, you can't do that without partnerships. It is based on partnerships. And yeah, it's exciting to see that that's where the future is going. I think there's two things that we we need to talk about that we cannot complete a podcast on cross-border payments without talking about. And the first one is AI and generative AI. There's always a moment in every podcast I do where I have to figure out whether or not I bring up AI, because it's a rabbit hole that we could go down. But let's just comment on it briefly. Lynsey, I'm going to come to you first. There's clearly all sorts of different areas that you can think about, where AI comes in. When we talk about cross-border payments for businesses, how do you think about it? Where does the value lie?
Yeah, well, AI has been a super hot topic, for the whole industry, but Visa's been talking about it a lot recently as well. And I think our message is we've been using AI for decades to really power the resilience of our network and ensure that we are really leveraging all of the data that we already have and utilizing that for a lot of our fraud prevention tools. So, to give a couple of examples, we're sort of looking at, from a transaction attribute perspective, 500 transaction attributes every millisecond in order to route score back to issuers to make a decision on whether they approve or decline a transaction. So AI is not new in payments, it's not new for us, but I think the machine learning piece has really brought forward the ability to be really innovative and bring great solutions to the ecosystem, whether that's improving the means to KYC, KYB new customers. I think we're even seeing emerging use cases around language support, which is very relevant from a cross-border perspective. And we hear a lot of businesses, as they grow into different regions, not necessarily small businesses, but even larger businesses, they do so following the languages that they can support. But we can see incredible ability to quickly, translate into a very natural voice in other languages. So that should really open up the barriers to moving across borders beyond the technical constraints. So a couple of ideas, but I think there's tons more.
Absolutely. And Enrico and Harry, are you both implementing generative AI in your businesses? I imagine so.
Well, AI has been injected in our blood big time. Well, one of the things I haven't mentioned is, first of all, Viva.com is it started as a software house. So all the technology that we built is all in-house, and we cover end-to-end when it comes to payments and the solutions. Everything is developed internally. So AI, we've been using AI not only for internal collaboration and efficiencies and so on, but we even started looking on AI for coding and development. But the main focus of AI now is how you serve customers, right? So from the onboarding, like Lynsey mentioned on eKYC and eKYB, so the onboarding, and especially for the SMEs and micro business, it needs to happen in fast, and AI is helping that a lot. Obviously, the second part is supporting these businesses, right? Supporting your customers, with AI, without compromising the quality. I think we're doing a great job, moving into that direction. And this is, it's part of the adoption, because the businesses and the consumers, they're all, need to anyways tap into AI. So and this is moving fast, but as well as our own sales, attributing and targeting these markets. We are embedding AI even into our CRM, and that makes a big difference as well.
Yeah, building on this, very similarly, we are embedding AI functionalities both for I would say our internal usage and internal process improvements, but also to help customers to get quicker onboarding, to get easy support, to get access to knowledge base. So there are, in my opinion, three areas where we are studying how can AI improve our life and our customers' life. First of all, as Harry was saying, all the onboarding knowledge base support, that's for sure. The second is for us to fraud detection. So how to use AI to improve our fraud detection capabilities. The third one is very typical from our business, which is payment reconciliation with accounting, which is historically a pain for a small business because you need to send out invoices and receive invoices. Then historically, what you do manually. You go to your own home banking, you download your payments transactions, and usually manually you check what is the payment about a specific invoice, and you close the accounting. So that for many years was like this, and this is totally automatic now. So this is a big application and a big advantage for productivity for our SMEs customers. You do it with artificial intelligence. It works like 99% of times because it's very easy now to recognize a payment transaction with an accounting item, which is usually an invoice. And that's a big advantage for our customers and a big use case for artificial intelligence.
I'm so glad you raised reconciliation because it is an example of just one of those back office functions that just never got disintermediated, never got innovated on until all of a sudden we now have the tools to do it at a lower cost. And you're right, the impact on the business is just absolutely phenomenal. So in the final closing remarks in this podcast, I'd love to talk a little bit about what next. And what next also for Southern Europe. And Lynsey, I'd love to come to you first. We've been talking about all sorts of different things, the growth, the challenges, the opportunities. There's also the looming specter, shall we say, of PSD3, the new directive coming on down the line. And I'm pretty sure that's another entire rabbit hole we could go down into. But Lynsey, what would you like to see happen next in this market?
I think there's a couple of things for me. One, it's giving access to the small businesses, the tools and the capabilities that are already live for enterprise businesses. So, the solutions are there to solve a lot of the problems that we've spoken about today. To give a few examples of what Visa's doing, we consider ourselves to be a network of networks. We've really expanded the connectivity, the reach that we have as a ubiquitous, secure global network that gives access to endpoints, users, banks across the world, in milliseconds. And the ability to move money across that network has expanded a lot in the past few years as well. We've got our solutions like Visa Direct that Harry mentioned earlier, and a series of other B2B capabilities. We've got our new open banking capability, Tink, and we've got Currency Cloud, which is helping with the complexity of VFX. So the tools are there. I think, it's making sure that we can make those accessible to the small merchants as well as the larger ones, which again is working in partnership with the likes of the folks that we're chatting to today. And then the second thing for me for small businesses is to continue to have very verticalized solutions and capabilities, because a small business today is typically not setting up their business and thinking payments, but rather they're thinking about how to operationalize the business that they have, how to reach customers, how to run their business. And then payments becomes as an integrated component within that. That is the way that small businesses are reaching payments today. It's not as common to go to your bank to set up your merchant account as it might have been 10 plus years ago. So it's really ensuring that we've got payments embedded, fully integrated into the softwares, the tools, the systems that small businesses are using today. But beyond just core payments, that they're getting those tools and those capabilities to make that more secure, more efficient, better user experience for their customers and a full value proposition. So that's what we're trying to get to. Awesome.
Harry and Enrico, would you echo that as well?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Embedding payments into solutions, it's the key here. When it comes to open banking, for example, putting that into a smart checkout or Visa Direct as well into, providing settlement for marketplaces through instant payments from, or giving instant refunds, giving, merchant rebates on a festival or for small event like beer stands where consumers will bring their reusable cups and get incentives for it. There's so many interesting use cases around that, and so putting payments into solutions is definitely key. And I reckon that I think it's we're going to see a lot of changes. Hope PSD3 can help. Obviously, regulation can kill sometimes, but in general, but it does open up opportunities. It does expand the ecosystem. If we can standardize, so the more the cross-border players, the more we can standardize these solutions across and across the multiple actors in the ecosystem, the easier. And I think, and I like to see, the likes of Visa doing that. I like to see how when you look at a market, when you look at multiple markets, then altogether, and when you look at multiple payment channels or solutions, how you can standardize the payments in it, and just it helps get across faster and minimize costs for the merchants. I mean, the SMEs, minimize fraud, as you said, provide visibility. Visibility, maybe we haven't touched it, but sending money across, knowing instantly if that transaction has been authorized, right, and not just not knowing at all if it thinking about only initiation of the payment and not looking at the execution, not looking at the authorization. I mean, there's a lot into that, and the time frame, everything helps.
Awesome. And Enrico, you for a final word. I mean, there's a lot there. Imagine you agree with it.
There's a lot there. Yeah, I tend to agree. Of course, embedding payment solutions into vertical software, and generally speaking, software solution. I think this is at the end is our strategy. So I totally agree with this by definition, I would say, and it's a big step forward. Regulation wise, I will add also the electronic invoicing, because we saw it in Italy specifically because it was the first country to adopt it, that it was a driver for fintech adoption. That's by definition for the SMEs and the Microsoft. I find the microbusiness, sorry. And the last point I will say, AI, as we said, and also the digital e-wallet. We'll see what happens, but it can be a change in the future behavior of consumer and SMEs.
Excellent. The future is embedded. Absolutely. Thank you all. And that wraps up today's discussion. So thank you so much for joining me. Where can people find out more about you all? Lynsey, let's start with you.
Well, I think on the Visa channels, probably the best way. But thanks so much for having me today, David. It's been a great discussion.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And Harry?
Well, Vivan.com it is, you can access the platform and start onboarding instantly, by within an hour, you can start accepting payments. You can start utilizing, sending payments, and join us, try it out.
Amazing. And Enrico?
Yeah, of course. TeamSystem applications, of course, usually you enter with because you need some invoicing or accounting solution, and then you join our payment solution embedded, as we said.
Awesome. And last but not least, you can find me on LinkedIn @DavidBG. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you like what you've heard, follow our podcast and don't forget to leave us a review. It helps us to make it better and helps others find the show. As always, if you want to join the conversation, find us on social media. Just search for 11FS or Fintech Insider, or email podcasts@11fs.com. Thanks very much and goodbye.